Welcome, focus learners, to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we're unpacking a truly paradigm-shifting concept from our source material. Let's be real for a second. When most of us hear the word budget, we kind of flinch, right? Society treats budgeting like a strict financial diet. Our minds immediately jump to restriction, to limits, to eating instant ramen every single night, and to this miserable idea that we simply aren't allowed to do what we want. But the text we're analyzing today flips that stigma completely upside down. We are exploring fact number 4 from our source, how budgeting is actually the ultimate key to personal freedom. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly how the mechanics of budgeting don't trap you at all, but rather give you the precise control needed to live a life of complete financial liberty and peace of mind.
But before we get to that freedom, let's talk about the reality so many of us currently face. Are you wondering where it went? I want you to think about that very specific, visceral feeling at the end of the month. You get to Friday, you open up your banking app, you look at your account balance, and your stomach just drops. There is a genuine sense of confusion and usually a pretty heavy dose of anxiety. You worked so incredibly hard for that income, but somehow it just pulled a disappearing act. The truth is, restriction and pain don't actually come from having a budget. They come from the severe cognitive load and stress of simply wondering where your money vanished to when you weren't looking.
And this brings us to a beautiful, powerful contrast presented in our source material. On one side, we have the old, stressful way of thinking about money, wondering where it went. It's totally passive. It leaves you feeling vulnerable, like a victim of your own daily expenses. On the other side, we have the empowered mindset, deciding where it goes. This is active. This is you stepping firmly into the driver's seat. Think about it like an architect. An architect doesn't just start throwing bricks around and hoping a house magically appears. They draw the blueprints long before the concrete is even poured. When you decide where your money goes ahead of time, you are no longer a bystander to your financial life. You are the architect, building a rock-solid foundation for your own independence.
Okay, let's dive into this. From wondering to controlling, the shift to personal freedom.
Our source material captures this shift brilliantly, and the language is so powerful in its simplicity. Let's really absorb this. A budget helps you decide where your money goes instead of wondering where it went. This isn't just a casual financial tip. It is a profound declaration of independence. Making the proactive choice of where your money flows is the very definition of financial freedom. A budget isn't a cage that keeps you from spending. It is the tool that empowers you to choose exactly what you spend on based entirely on your own terms. It's the difference between buying a latte and feeling a nagging sense of guilt versus buying that exact same latte and enjoying every sip because you already decided in advance that it was part of your plan.
The 50-30-20 budgeting rule, a practical example for financial control.
Let's look at how this philosophical concept becomes a reality. The text specifically points to the 50-30-20 rule as a highly practical framework. What exactly is this? Well, it's a strategy that divides your money into 3 distinct proportional buckets: needs, wants, and savings. Instead of looking at your income as one giant, confusing pool of water that slowly evaporates over the month, you compartmentalize it. The rule suggests allocating 50% of your income to your absolute needs, things like housing, groceries, and utilities. Then, 30% goes to your wants, dining out, entertainment, and lifestyle choices. Finally, the remaining 20% is dedicated to savings and debt repayment, essentially investing in your future self. By sorting your income into these designated buckets, you are setting the rules of the game before the game even begins. And this brilliantly illustrates how carving your resources into these 3 deliberate pieces, the 50%, the 30%, and the 20%, is incredibly empowering because it eliminates financial microstress. You aren't just reacting to bills or impulsive desires as they pop up. You've already made the executive decision on how everything is distributed. Think specifically about that 30% wants category. That is your freedom fund. That is the ultimate proof that budgeting does not equal starvation. By explicitly setting aside a portion of your income strictly for enjoyment, you are granting yourself total permission to spend without an ounce of guilt. You have reclaimed your control by defining exactly what your money is allowed to do for you. The text explicitly instructs us to use the 50-30-20 budgeting rule, and here is why this is so absolutely critical. Daily life is essentially a tornado of consumerism. Every single day, you are bombarded by targeted ads, one-click purchases, unexpected emergencies, and social pressure to spend. Actively applying this specific proportional rule acts as a proactive defense mechanism against all that chaos. You don't get swept up in the tornado because the 50, the 30, and the 20 have already been assigned their critical missions. You completely bypass the dreaded wondering phase, ensuring that your hard-earned personal freedom is continuously protected.
We are now moving to the climax of the explainer. Every dollar has a purpose, the final lesson. Let's distill all of this down to a single, solitary dollar. Just one. I want you to imagine an unemployed dollar floating around in your checking account without a budget. That dollar is completely lost. It's likely going to drift off and slip through the cracks, perhaps disappearing into a forgotten streaming subscription you haven't watched in 6 months. It is entirely wasted potential. But an employed, budgeted dollar, that is a totally different story. A budgeted dollar is a tiny worker that you have specifically hired, whether it's laying the bricks for your emergency fund or working as the travel agent funding your next vacation. It is working diligently around the clock for your personal freedom. So the crucial point is every dollar should have a purpose. This is the core, ultimate lesson from our text. I want to really emphasize that word, purpose. When you connect purpose to your money, you unlock true financial autonomy. Purpose is the absolute antidote to restriction. When a dollar has a purpose, you aren't holding it back, you are weaponizing it to actively defend your joy and secure your future. Whether that purpose is for today's enjoyment or tomorrow's security, you are the one who aligned that money with your personal values. You gave it that job. When we step back and look at the whole picture, we see a brilliant, unified system. First, we started with the central fact: budgeting gives you control. Second, we learned the mindset shift. We must decide instead of wondering, acting as the architects of our own lives. And finally, we learned the ultimate lesson: to execute this control. Give every single dollar a purpose. Together, these 3 points operate like interlocking gears in an engine. When they turn together, they form a complete, unstoppable system for seizing control of your financial destiny and unlocking your personal freedom. Which leaves us with a final thought to take with you today. If we know that control comes from deciding, and freedom comes from assigning a vital job to your money, if every dollar has a purpose, what is the purpose of your next dollar on the road to freedom? The choice is entirely yours. You are the boss. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to step into the driver's seat and start making those empowering decisions today.